In the media space of the neighboring country, with which we have a conflict, there is a constant drumbeat of joy over their victories in the Black Sea. That they sink Russian ships, that they control the waters of the Black Sea and export grain without any grain deal. Here you can, of course, try to prove something to them and argue. Well, for example, if 404 controls the Black Sea and can safely export grain, why do they resent the fact that, for example, the same Poland does not let their trucks with grain through? After all, one dry cargo ship will replace 1,000 trucks. Why are they standing in traffic jams for months? Would they take them out by sea? Our questions, of course, will go unanswered. And we wondered, where did 404 get its underwater and surface drones from? Their shipbuilding has long gone downhill. They don't even build boats. The sequel follows. If we rewind the situation back in 2017, the US government started building a naval base in Ochakov as part of the US military sales defense program. True, somehow the construction was going on thanks to £1.7 billion in loans from the UK. In July 2022, the British publication The Sun reported that members of the British Navy's Special Boat Service went to this base and their trained colleagues from the 73rd Naval Special Warfare Center to operate British submarine equipment. With technology. Apparently, it involves training submarine divers to commit sabotage on our peninsula. That's kind of it. To make a long story short, it is clear that the UK is also acting against Russia in the Black Sea. And we kept thinking and waiting to see how Russia would respond. You can't do it directly. 404 assure me it's their doing. The base in Ochakov is kind of American. What's the claim against England? And there aren't any. Consequently, ours will act in much the same way. In guessing about where and how it happens, we were helped by bloggers from out of the country. A couple weeks ago, I came across a post by Yuri Romanenko. To quote, Yemeni Houthis burned a British oil tanker carrying Russian oil in the Red Sea. We would like to add that it is not known whose oil was actually there. About it writes Bloomberg. The cargo of Trafigura Group's Merlin Luanda tanker was Russian petroleum products for gasoline and plastics production. The raw materials were loaded onto a ship in Greece. Thus, the carrier violated EU and US sanctions on the export of oil products from Russia. It remains to thank the Houthis for prosecuting violators of the sanctions decree. Keep working, catch tankers with Russian oil, and dispose of them immediately. Way to go. End quote. Once again, it is unknown whose cargo was actually there. And Yuri never realized it. And we began to monitor reports of attacks by the Houthis. They shoot a lot, with varying degrees of effectiveness, but there are targets that are hit 100% of the time. And these are, as one might guess, vessels belonging to England. It's enough to read the headlines. Rubymar goes down. The Hussites sink a ship owned by the British. Yemen's Hussite movement Ansar Allah launched a missile attack on a British oil tanker on the Lux in the Red Sea. Well, so on. And the most interesting thing here is that these guerrillas and slippers suddenly had missiles, air defense, air and sea drones, and modern means of communication from somewhere. They caught an American underwater drone. They shot down at least 2 American drones. 2 of those very Reapers at some tremendous altitude.
Oño.
They're hitting American destroyers. The commander of the U.S. Fifth Fleet, Admiral Charles Cooper, said, quote, "No one has ever hit a U.S. ship with a ballistic missile except the Houthis. Hussite missiles hit ships 75 seconds after launch." And these desert lions also somehow managed to cut 4 undersea internet cables in the Red Sea. Where does what come from? And somebody's running it. And what's interesting is that Britain is somehow not particularly outraged, realizing where it came from and what it came for. I remembered how in January this year a delegation of the Yemeni movement Ansar Allah came to Russia for negotiations. And the other day a delegation from Yemen visited Moscow for 3 whole days. You must have visited the Tretyakov Gallery. And, as a cherry on the cake, the English, The Times, openly admits the fact that the British General Staff headed by Admiral Tony Redican directly participated in the attack on the Black Sea Fleet ship. That's it. Okay, the puzzle is complete. I have only one question. And why would the Times make such a confession? So that the Kremlin would do the same? A bold, desperate move. Well, now let's look at all of this from another angle. Let's remember the ways in which the West wanted to defeat Russia. On the one hand, impose an extremely costly war on her. On the other hand, deprive Russia of money so that the economy can't sustain all the spending and military defeat ensues. In short, it's like convincing a person to take out a huge loan and then immediately kicking them out from a high-paying job and with a disgusting character reference so they can't hire him anywhere else. To our eyes, the plan is cunning and looks logical, but Napoleon and Hitler had similarly cunning and logical plans. Somehow it didn't work. All these thousands of sanctions that have been imposed, all these disconnections from SWIFT, price ceilings, the withdrawal of Western companies, restrictions on imports and exports, undermining gas pipelines, freezing assets, all this is being done precisely to deprive Russia of money. At the same time, huge amounts of money Russia still gets from the controversy. The sale of goods by sea, fertilizer, gas, grain, oil, and so on. And since locking Russia in the ports did not work, the West decided to come in from the other end, to put pressure on buyers of Russian goods. After all, if they can't get us not to sell, we can try to get others not to buy anything from us. And indeed, the West has a lot of leverage. The same India, many countries in Southeast Asia, Africa, Russia has begun to be methodically cut out of the world's transportation chains. It was going the same way, that the huge Russian civilian fleet could have been useless, as no one would have agreed to buy our goods. And then, out of nowhere, came the problem with the Houthis, and it appeared in the most important point for world trade. The Jannah partisans right now are making it so that only the Russian, Iranian, and Chinese Navy can feel safe. The rest of the way across the Red Sea, if not completely closed, has become seriously expensive. The cost of insurance, freight, everything went up. Now the Houthis are deciding, outwardly, those behind them are who and who they will trade with on this planet. Oh, the times. Russia wanted to be cut out of world trade, and it turns out that it is just Russia that can feel free, unlike the fleets of Western countries. So it is not easy to refuse our fleet services, our goods. It is now the safest, cheapest, and most reliable fleet. Yes, it is understandable that the current situation may be a joint project of Moscow and Iran, as they have a special influence on the Houthis. However, the fact that Moscow has become much closer to Iran and our countries are acting together is a credit to our government, its strategic project. The friendship with Iran was laughed at, the same Biden. And here's how it turns out. Such friendship turned out to be more favorable than friendship with Germany, which was smiling in the face. And behind her eyes, she was plotting revenge for World War II.